This is the Villains Man, and I'm Justin bringing you another comic book review over Kong of Skull Island by Boom Studios. Now, originally this was supposed to be a 6-part miniseries, but halfway through the first 6 issues they decided to make it an ongoing series. So with this review I'll be covering those original first 6 issues. Now, if you're like me and you're a fan of King Kong, you want to see the giant ape fight dinosaurs or the occasional monster. If you're a new fan and you've seen trailers for the upcoming film Kong Skull Island, and you've seen how much action and monster battles that are in that film, when you read this book, that's what you're going to want to see. And for new fans and old fans, you're going to be disappointed because this book is an origin and it follows 2 main ones. The first and the main focus of these first 6 issues are the people of Skull Island and how they came to be. As the comic starts, you learn that they are 2 tribes, the Tagu and the Atu, and one time they were the same people, but due to different beliefs and gods and traditions, the tribes have split. Where the Atu, that I'm going to assume stayed on the island they were from, the Tagu had left. This further builds the rift between the people. Now, the island the Atu are on, which I'm assuming was the island they were all from, is full of animals and vegetation, and they don't have to worry about starving. They've always got supplies. It's already fortified from the wilds of the island, where the Tagu have left, and the island that they were on is becoming bare, and they've built these great ships to house their Kong, where they can travel from all the islands nearby to gather food and shelter for their people, so they don't have to worry about going hungry or not having shelter. Now, from both these tribes, we get our main characters. First, from the Tagu tribe, we have Karidi, the prince of the tribe, and his secret lover, Iwata, who is a Kong trainer, and unknown to him, she's carrying his child. After the festival that they're currently taking place in passes over, they are promised by the king to be married. From the Atu tribe, we have the Princess Usana and her father, the king/shaman, Vidrell, who doesn't play a main part in the beginning of the book, but has a very important part in the end of the book. Through these characters, and through both tribes in the story, you learn that Skull Island to them is a myth and a legend, and the only stories told of it are through, much like Godzilla, King of the Monsters, through feverish fishermen whose boats have crashed, and they've washed ashore to both islands, and they've claimed that, they were attacked by demons on Skull Island shores. Now, when the book starts out, there's a festival going on that you assume that both tribes hold as a tradition to battle Kong and take offerings for the gods. At this time, a volcano erupts, the people get scared, so both kings of the Atu and the Tagu decide that they're going to force Karidi and Usana into a marriage and hope that it will appease the gods, which it doesn't. As the volcano gets worse, they make both their people, their Kongs, and what supply they can gather, they put them on the Tagu's ships and they sail out. Now, during all this, Iwata has taken her Kong and the trainers on one of the ships to search for supplies and accidentally comes across Skull Island, which they're attacked by dinosaur-like monsters from the ocean and from the air. And she only returns to see the wedding ceremony of her beloved Kariti and Usana and is heartbroken, thinking that it's done on purpose. Now, all the ships, they're loaded up, they're going to Skull Island. One by one, they take off and they're ahead of one another. When they land, the first ship obviously is attacked by all types of dinosaurs on the island. The next few ships arrive to support them. Now, the main ship that carries Karidi and Usana, treachery happens as Usana's father, Vidrell, attacks Karidi and kills him, and they're going to make a power play to unite both the people and take control of them. Once the whole of both tribes are on the island, they try to make headway and fortify the land because they're constantly under the attack of dinosaurs. Now, through all this, Usana and her father Vidrell learn that Iwata's pregnant And they both fear that once the baby is born, being true royalty, that it'll lead the tribes and take away the rulership. So they make a plot to kill her and the baby. Now during this time, there's what you could describe as two velociraptors. They're basically hunting the people in the Kongs as they forage into the island. And at one time, they're basically moving them to a spot where there's this massive cave where you come across this enormous mutated T-Rex. It's got two heads. And they ambush him knowing that the T-Rex will help take out the Kong. Now Iwata's Kong realizes that she's pregnant, moves her to safety during the battle, where Vajrael attempts to kill her, and he fails. And during this time, Usana is trying to leave because she wants no part of the murder of the baby, and you assume that by her scream that she's died as well. Now, I'm not very big on this origin of how the people of Skull Island came to be. At first, I thought it was interesting how they were one people at one time, and then the tribes split apart, and then they were forced to come back together. That I'm fine with. Now, the Shakespearean plot between Iwata, Kariti, and Usana, I'm not big on. It's very medieval. Prince is in love with someone below his station. He's forced to marry a princess from another kingdom to unite. Both kingdoms become more powerful, but that kingdom's only seeking power. So the father and the daughter murder the prince, and his peasant lover gets the revenge she wants by killing his murderer, and then the princess dies a horrible death. I'm not big on that, but if I was to write it, I don't know which way I would go either. But it seems like they had a really good foundation except for that, and I'm curious to where this will lead the people of Skull Island. We've had 3 retellings of the story of King Kong by the time this book has come out, with Skull Island fast approaching here in a month and a half. And in each of those movies, the people of Skull Island are savages. And if you look at Peter Jackson's version, they're very deformed, almost like there's a lot of inbreeding going on, which you would assume by having such a small amount of people on this island that would take place. Now, maybe the savagery from these comics to those movies takes place due to what they're under at the island, with all the savagery of dinosaurs and constantly being attacked and watching their people get killed and watching their precious Kongs that they've raised to die. So maybe eventually, as the story goes on, we'll see more of that come out of the people. Also, they're going to need more main characters. Verdel's died, Usana's died, Kariti's died. The one character I did mention is the shaman of the Tagu tribe, because the story is told almost through her eyes. She's basically a historian, and she writes down everything. She's a keeper of lore and history. And I'm assuming eventually Iwata will take her spot once she dies, because they're very close. Now, a lot of the Kong trainers who you think would be main characters that seem to have some connection to Iwata also die in the story. So I'm curious to who they're going to bring to the forelight of this book besides the shaman and Iwata. Also, there's a small conspiracy brewing with Iwata, the baby, and the murder of Vajrael and Usana that'll probably play out later in the books. But looking at what they've built through the tribe, I think they might have made a mistake making this an ongoing series. They may make it a maxi series, a book that might last 12, 15 issues. You see a lot of those here in the last 15, 20 years of comics. So that's what I'm expecting this to go to, and probably end with them seeing the ship from the King Kong movies arriving to Skull Island. Now, the other origin, and the one fans want to see, the one that's kind of in the background of the book, is the origin of Kong. And by Kong, I mean multiples. You find out that Kong is also singular and plural for their species. You find that both the tribes, and I quote, through science and mathematics, have turned regular apes into the Kong. Which I find very curious, because you would expect them just to be a breed of giant ape. I mean, if you look at all the movies and through other stories, that's what you've assumed. They're just a giant species of ape. But you found out that the Tagu and the Atu have been breeding these Kongs and training them for thousands of years to reach the size that they're at. Now, You also learn that the Atu and the Tagu train their Kongs very different. The Atu, they use fear and pain to train their Kongs, almost as in they are a status above the giant apes, where the Tagu, they use respect and kindness to their Kongs, and them are the only Kongs in the book that you see that have names. They are treated as equals to the Tagu people. Now, you don't get to see a lot of training techniques for the Kong. At one time, Iwatu has a powder when the volcano erupts during the festival. To calm one of the Kongs, she blows it in their face. Before Iwata kills Verdrell, he uses almost like a poison powder to blow in her Kong's face to try to kill the creature so she can kill her and the baby. So once they're on the island, I'm curious to see how they'll continue to train these Kongs. I'm hoping that becomes a main focus of these books. Also, you see through the Tagu where the original King Kong in the movies has a fondness for women. I'd like to say people in particular, because you kind of see it in this book, but you could see where the fondness of women come out, because her Kong is a female and they have a very close connection, and she wants to breed her Kong. So with that said, at this time there is no, you should say in quotes, King Kong that everybody is used to and loves. You eventually think that that creature will be breeded later on and brought to the light and maybe be the main focus of this book before everybody arrives from New York to take him away. Overall, I wasn't really thrilled with this story. As I said before, I think they made a mistake trying to make this an ongoing series, and I think eventually it'll be wrapped up probably within 20 issues. I'd be surprised if it made it to 25 issues. For one, the story of the people of Skull Island, I'm very torn apart. I liked how they were split due to traditions and whatnot. I like how the Kong had came to be and how they had trained them. I'm very curious to see how that plays out now that they're on an island. I just hated the very Shakespearean plot of royalty and how it came to be and how it brought Iwata to be queen of the island. As I said at the beginning of this, there's not a lot of giant kaiju action to say. The main battle at the end with the two Kong and the massive mutated two-headed Tyrannosaurus Rex, it wasn't very satisfying because it wasn't drawn out. You didn't get to see a lot of the action like you would get from IDW's Godzilla series, so hopefully they see that mistake and they rectify that as the book goes on. I will say that I'll probably read the next arc of this and hope that it gets better, but as I said, I don't expect it to go on for much longer. That being said, in other news, based on Kong Skull Island, which I think will really confuse this book with that movie, now Kong Skull Island is having a comic that takes place with their movie, much like we had with Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla Awakening. I'm pretty sure that will probably cause many confusion between new and old fans on, hey, this is supposed to go to this book, wait, this goes to this book. Also, there's an old story called Kong King of Skull Island, which I think most people will seek out thinking it has something to do with the movie as well, which is not a bad story, so if you can find that, I'd read that. But that wraps up my review on the first 6 issues of Kong Skull Island. I'm Justin, and this is The Villain's a Man. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep reading, guys.